The moment I felt eyes tracking my every move through the rain-slicked streets, I knew my cover was about to shatter. 3 months of playing the invisible servant, 3 months of scrubbing floors in a penthouse that reeked of power and violence, 3 months of pretending I didn't notice the blood that sometimes stained the marble or the hushed conversations that ended when I entered a room. 3 months of lying to the most dangerous man in the city. And tonight, as I pulled my coat tighter against the November wind and quickened my pace down the darkened avenue, I realized he was following me. Maverick Kane didn't follow people. He sent others to do his hunting, which meant whatever he was about to discover was going to change everything, or end everything. It started the way most dangerous things do, with desperation and a lie. "Credentials look solid," the placement coordinator had said, sliding my forged documents across her desk. "Kane Enterprise pays well. Very well. But I should warn you the position has high turnover." "How high?" "Last girl made it 2 weeks. One before that, 9 days. Mr. Kane is particular about his household staff." Particular. That was one word for it. The file I'd memorized before burning it had used different words. Ruthless. Calculated. Suspected of running half the organized crime in 3 states. Impossible to prosecute because witnesses had a habit of disappearing before trial. But the file also mentioned something else. Something that made him my target. A trafficking network. Young women vanishing from small towns, never seen again. Money trails that led to shell companies with Kane's fingerprints all over them. My sister's face had been on that list of the missing. 18 months gone. No leads, no body, no hope. Until I found the connection to Maverick Kane. So I'd forged credentials, created a background that would pass surface-level scrutiny, and walked into his world wearing a maid's uniform and carrying enough rage to burn his empire to ash. "I'll take the position," I'd told the coordinator. She'd looked at me like I was signing my death certificate. Maybe I was. The first time I saw Maverick Kane, I understood why people feared him. It wasn't his size, though he stood well over 6 feet of controlled power. Wasn't the scar that cut through his left eyebrow, or the ink that covered his forearms in patterns that looked like smoke and shadow. It was the stillness. He didn't move like other men, rushed, aggressive, loud. He moved like winter itself, slow, deliberate, inevitable, and when those grey eyes found mine across his living room on that first morning, I felt stripped bare. Like he could see through skin and bone straight into the secrets I was hiding. "Miss Cassidy Hayes," he'd said, my cover name rolling off his tongue with precision. "The agency speaks highly of your discretion." "I believe in keeping my head down and my work clean, Mr. Kane." "Do you?" It wasn't a question. Most people find this environment unsettling. The hours are irregular, the work demanding, and I value privacy above all else. "Can you handle that, Miss Hayes?" I'd met his gaze directly, channeling every lesson I'd learned about appearing harmless while hiding steel underneath. "I've handled worse than demanding hours and irregular schedules, sir. I need this job." "I'll make sure you have no complaints." Something flickered across his face. Amusement, maybe. Or recognition that I was lying through my teeth. "We'll see," he'd said. "Start Monday, 6 in the morning. Don't be late." I wasn't. The apartment was a fortress disguised as luxury. 23rd floor. Cameras in every corridor. Security guards who looked like they could break a man in half without breaking a sweat. Windows that probably cost more than most people's yearly salary, overlooking a city that looked small and conquerable from this height. And everywhere were signs of the violence that funded this kingdom. A shirt left carelessly on the bathroom floor with blood on the collar. Conversations in Russian that stopped the moment I rounded a corner. Men in expensive suits who looked at me with eyes that assessed threat levels and calculated how quickly I could be eliminated. I documented everything. The safe hidden behind the bookshelf in his office, the laptop he left open when he stepped away for phone calls, the files in his desk drawer marked with names I recognized from missing persons reports. I photographed when I could, memorized when I couldn't, sent encrypted reports to my handler every 3 days with information that should have been enough to bring him down. But it never was. Kane was too smart, too careful, too many steps ahead of everyone trying to catch him. And meanwhile, I cleaned his floors and made his coffee and pretended I didn't notice that he was watching me just as carefully as I was watching him. "You rearranged my library," he said one evening, appearing so suddenly behind me that my hand almost went for the knife I kept strapped to my thigh under my uniform. I turned slowly, keeping my expression neutral. The previous system made no sense. Books should be organized by author, not by color. Most people wouldn't presume to reorganize my belongings. Most people probably don't spend as much time here as I do. I'm just trying to make the space more functional. He'd stepped closer, close enough that I could smell expensive cologne mixed with something darker. Gunpowder, maybe. Or danger. "Functional," he'd repeated. "You're an interesting woman, Miss Hayes. Most people in your position try to be invisible. You make yourself indispensable." "Is there a problem with that?" "I haven't decided yet." He'd left me standing there, heart hammering, wondering if I'd just made a fatal mistake. But the next morning, there was a note on the kitchen counter in his precise handwriting. "Coffee was perfect. Thank you." And I'd realised that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't the only one playing a dangerous game. Week 5 brought changes I didn't expect. Conversations that lasted longer than necessary. Questions about my background that probed too close to the edges of my cover story. Moments when I'd look up to find him watching me with an expression I couldn't decipher. And gifts. Small things at first. A better coffee maker appearing in the kitchen. A note saying the previous one was inadequate. Books left on the table in genres I'd mentioned liking during one brief exchange. A jacket, expensive, tailored, with a note saying the one I wore looked insufficient for winter. "You don't need to do this," I'd told him, holding the jacket. "I take care of what's mine," he'd replied, and the possessiveness in those words had sent heat through me that had nothing to do with the coat. "I'm your employee, not your property." "Are you sure about that?" The question had hung between us, weighted with meanings I didn't want to examine, because examining them meant acknowledging that somewhere between week 1 and week 5, this had stopped being just an assignment, that I'd started noticing the way his jaw tightened when he was stressed, the way his hands moved with brutal efficiency but touched his books with surprising gentleness. The way he took calls at midnight in a language I didn't speak, his voice dropping to dangerous levels that made my pulse quicken. That I'd started caring about more than just bringing him to justice. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. Week 8 changed everything. I was leaving for the evening later than usual because Kane had entertained guests, dangerous-looking men who'd conducted business in his office while I'd cleaned elsewhere, listening through the bugs I'd planted and recording everything I could. The conversation had been damning. Names of girls, locations, money exchanging hands, everything I needed to confirm that he was exactly what I'd suspected, everything I needed to destroy him. So why did my chest feel hollow as I gathered my things and prepared to leave? Why did I hesitate at the door, looking back at the space I'd come to know too well? Why did some traitorous part of me hope he'd call out and ask me to stay? He didn't. I left. And, as I stepped into the November night, rain beginning to fall in sheets that soaked through my coat within seconds, I felt it. That prickling awareness. That certainty that I wasn't alone. I took my usual route through the financial district, past the closed shops and empty plazas. down into the older part of the city where streetlights flickered and shadows pooled in doorways. The footsteps behind me were almost silent. Almost. But I'd been trained to hear ghosts, and whoever was following me was very, very good at being a ghost. I led them, him, through a maze of alleys and side streets, doubling back twice to confirm I wasn't imagining things. Each time there he was, patient, relentless, staying just far enough back that I couldn't get a clear look. Finally, I'd had enough. I ducked into an alley I'd scouted weeks ago. Dead end. But with excellent sightlines. With my back to the wall and my hand on my weapon, I waited. He stepped into view like smoke taking form. Maverick Kane. And from the look on his face, this was going to be a conversation that ended with one of us dead or devastated. Interesting path you take home, Miss Hayes. Or should I call you Agent Rivers? My blood turned to ice. He knew. He'd known. The question was, for how long? I kept my hand near my weapon but didn't draw it. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't. His voice cut like a blade. Don't insult us both with more lies. I've known since day 3 that you weren't a maid. The way you move, the way you catalogue every detail, or the way you look at me like you're trying to decide if I'm worth saving or if you should just put a bullet in my head and call it justice. He stepped closer and I noticed he kept his hands visible. Not threatening, but not vulnerable either. How long have you known? I asked, abandoning the pretense. Does it matter? It matters to me. I ran your credentials the day you walked in, found the forgery within hours. Then I dug deeper and found the real Cassidy Rivers, federal agent, missing persons specialist, and a woman with a very good reason to want me dead. My throat tightened. My sister, Willow Rivers, 19, disappeared from a bus station in Montana 18 months ago. Last seen getting into a black SUV. His grey eyes held mine. You think I took her? I know you did. The evidence is planted. He moved closer still, and I realised he was backing me against the wall, not threatening, cornering, by someone who wanted you to find it, who wanted you to come after me, who knew exactly what buttons to push to make you risk everything for revenge. I shook my head. You're lying. Am I? Then explain why I let you plant bugs in my office, why I let you photograph documents, why I fed you information designed to make me look guilty of exactly what you suspected. Because you're playing a game, setting a trap. No, Cassidy. I'm testing to see if you trust the evidence or your instincts. His hand came up, not touching me, but close enough that I felt the heat of him. Every conversation you heard, every document you found, I wanted you to find it. To see if you'd act on manufactured evidence or if you'd question why it was all so easy to obtain. My mind raced, replaying every moment of the past 8 weeks, every piece of evidence that had fallen into my lap, every conversation conveniently overheard, every document left carelessly within reach. You wanted me to come after you, I said slowly. I wanted to know if you were like every other agent who's tried to take me down, seeing only what they want to see, acting on assumption rather than truth. He leaned closer, his voice dropping. Or if you were different, if you'd see past the setup, if you'd question why a man as careful as me would leave so much evidence lying around. Then tell me the truth. Did you take my sister? No. Then who did? His jaw tightened. The same organisation that's been trying to frame me for 18 months. The same people trafficking those girls and using my name as cover. The same people who knew that if they took your sister, eventually someone like you would come looking for justice. Why should I believe you? Because if I wanted you dead, Cassidy, you'd have been dead on day 3. If I wanted you gone, I'd have had you transferred to Alaska with one phone call. If I wanted you discredited, I'd have exposed your false credentials and ended your career. He cupped my face with surprising gentleness. But I don't want any of those things. I want you to help me take down the people who actually took your sister. And I want you to stop looking at me like I'm a monster when I'm the only person who's been honest with you in 8 weeks. Honest? You knew who I was and you let me. I let you see what you needed to see, to realize that something wasn't adding up, to start questioning your assumptions. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. I let you get close enough to see that the man you thought I was doesn't exist. That the real me is more complicated than any file could capture. I wanted to pull away, wanted to maintain professional distance, wanted to deny that my heart was racing for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. But I couldn't, because he was right. Somewhere between week 5 and week 8, I'd started seeing the inconsistencies, the evidence that was too perfect, the setup that was too obvious, the man who didn't match the monster in my files. My sister, I said, my voice breaking. If you didn't take her, where is she? I don't know yet. But I have people looking, and I have a plan to draw out the organization that did take her. A plan that requires someone on the inside. Someone with your skills. Someone willing to go deeper into darkness than any federal agent should go. You're asking me to go rogue. I'm asking you to trust me long enough to find the truth, to save your sister and stop the people actually responsible for destroying lives. His forehead touched mine. I'm asking you to be my partner in this, not my enemy. I could lose everything. My career, my reputation, my freedom. Or you could gain everything that actually matters, your sister, justice for all the other victims, and maybe, he paused, maybe something else you didn't know you were looking for. What's that? Someone who sees you the same way you're starting to see me. Not as an agent or a target, but as someone worth risking everything for. The words hung between us, dangerous and tempting and completely insane. I should have said no, should have called for backup, should have followed protocol and procedure, and every rule I'd sworn to uphold. But rules hadn't found my sister. Procedures hadn't stopped the trafficking. Protocol hadn't brought justice to anyone. Maybe it was time to try something different. Tell me your plan, I said. The plan was audacious. Borderline suicidal. And absolutely the kind of thing that would end with both of us dead or in prison if it went wrong. Which, knowing my luck, it probably would. But Maverick's contacts were better than anything the federal government had. His network ran deeper, his information more current, and his motivation wasn't bureaucracy or politics, but it was personal. They killed my brother, he told me that night in his apartment, showing me files I'd never seen, evidence I'd never known existed. 2 years ago, he was investigating them from the inside, got too close. They made it look like a deal gone wrong, but I knew better. He spread photographs across his table. Young women. Some I recognized from missing persons reports, others were new faces. I've been tracking them ever since, building a case, freeing who I could. But they're smart, protected. Every time I get close, they vanish. Every time I find a location, they've already moved. He looked up at me. Until now, what changed? You. They sent you to me, which means they're watching, waiting to see what happens. If we play this right, we can use their surveillance against them. Make them think you've succeeded in getting close to me, in gaining my trust, in learning my secrets. And then we give them exactly what they want. Me, exposed, vulnerable, ready to fall. His eyes held mine, and when they make their move, we'll be ready. It was crazy, reckless. Everything I'd been trained not to do. It was also the first real chance I'd had to save my sister in 18 months. I'm in, I said. His smile was sharp and dangerous and made my heart race. Good, because this partnership just got a lot more complicated. How? He crossed the space between us in 2 strides and kissed me. It wasn't gentle, wasn't careful or controlled. It was desperate and hungry and full of 8 weeks of tension neither of us had acknowledged. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, his thumb traced my lower lip. That's how," he said roughly. "We have to make this look real. Make them believe you've been compromised, that you've fallen for the target, that you're too deep to pull back. And if that part isn't acting, then we're both in a lot more trouble than we thought." The next 6 weeks were the most dangerous of my life. Not because of the surveillance or the sting operation or the constant threat of discovery, but because I was falling. Falling for a man I'd been sent to destroy. Falling for someone who lived in shadows but showed me glimpses of light. Falling for the person who'd turned out to be nothing like the monster in my files and everything I'd never known I needed. We worked side by side, building a trap for the people who'd destroyed so many lives. I fed false information to my handlers, information Maverick carefully crafted to lead them exactly where we wanted. We staged arguments, reconciliations, moments designed to make our relationship look volatile, passionate, real. The problem was, it was real. "You're good at this," he said one night as we reviewed surveillance footage. "Good at what?" "Lying, acting, making people believe whatever you want them to believe." He turned to face me. "Makes me wonder what's real and what's performance. Does it matter?" "It matters to me." I set down the tablet I'd been holding. "What do you want me to say, Maverick? That I was acting when I kissed you this morning? That I'm faking the way I look at you? That none of this is real?" "I want you to tell me the truth. The truth is complicated. Try me." I took a breath. "The truth is I came here to destroy you. And somewhere along the way, you became the most important thing in my life. The truth is I should walk away, but I can't imagine my world without you in it anymore. The truth is I'm terrified of what happens when this is over and we have to figure out what we are to each other." He crossed to me, pulling me into his arms. "We're partners. We're allies. And we're 2 people who found each other in the worst possible circumstances and decided to fight for something better. That simple? That complicated." He kissed my forehead. "But we'll figure it out. Together." The night everything came to a head started like any other. Surveillance indicated the trafficking network was finally making their move. After weeks of carefully leaked information, they believed Maverick was vulnerable, compromised by his relationship with me, ready to fall. Or they weren't wrong about the relationship part. "Stay behind me," Maverick said as we prepared for what was coming. "Not a chance. We're partners, remember? Partners who don't want to see each other die tonight. Then we don't die. We survive. We win. And we save my sister." Because that's what the intelligence finally confirmed. Willow was alive, being held as leverage. They'd been saving her for exactly this moment, when they could use her to break me. They didn't understand that I was already broken, and rebuilt into something harder. Something that wouldn't shatter when they played their trump card. The assault came at midnight. They were good, professional, armed, expecting resistance but confident in their numbers. What they didn't expect was how well Maverick and I worked together, how many hours we'd spent training, how perfectly we moved as a unit, or that Maverick's entire security team was waiting in the wings. The fight was brutal, violent, the kind of thing that would leave scars, physical and psychological. But when the smoke cleared and the sirens approached and the bodies were counted, we were still standing. And in the back room, hands bound and eyes wide with disbelief, was my sister. Willow didn't recognize me at first. 18 months of captivity had changed her, hollowed her out, left shadows in eyes that used to shine with mischief. But when I said her name, when I knelt in front of her and she finally looked at me, something cracked in her expression. "Cassidy, I'm here. I found you. You're safe now." She collapsed into my arms, sobbing, and I held her like I'd been holding my breath for 18 months. Like she was proof that hope wasn't a lie. That persistence paid off, that sometimes you had to break all the rules to do the right thing. Maverick stood back, giving us space, but when I looked up at him, the expression on his face made my chest tight. "Thank you," I mouthed. He just nodded. Like saving my sister hadn't just blown up his entire operation. Like helping me hadn't just painted a target on his back that would last the rest of his life. Like I was worth it. The aftermath was complicated. My superiors weren't pleased that I'd gone rogue, that I'd partnered with a suspected criminal, that I'd broken approximately 300 protocols and procedures, but they couldn't argue with results. 23 girls recovered, a trafficking network dismantled, arrests that would make careers and headlines. And Maverick Kane, just surprisingly cleared of all charges, because it turned out he'd been working with a special task force for 2 years, building a case from the inside, risking his life daily to stop the very crimes everyone thought he was committing. "You knew," I said when he finally told me everything. "The whole time, you were undercover. Deep undercover. So deep even most of my agency didn't know. I couldn't risk exposure, not until we had everything we needed to bring them down." "And me? You were a complication I didn't expect." He pulled me close. "A beautiful, stubborn, dangerous complication who turned my entire operation upside down. Sorry about that. Don't be. You made it better. Made me remember why I was doing this, what I was fighting for." He kissed me softly. "You made me remember what it felt like to be human instead of just a weapon." "So what happens now?" "Now we figure out what comes next. For your sister, for the investigation, for us. Is there an us? Do you want there to be?" I looked up at this man who'd turned my world upside down, who'd been nothing like I expected and everything I needed, who'd helped me save my sister and in the process saved me from becoming someone I wouldn't recognize. "Yes," I said, "I want there to be an us." He smiled. "Good, because I wasn't planning on letting you go anyway." 6 months later, Willow stood in Maverick's kitchen making coffee like she owned the place. She'd moved in after her therapy team agreed she needed familiar faces around her during recovery. Maverick's apartment had become a strange kind of sanctuary. For her, for me, and for all of us trying to rebuild after destruction. "You two are disgustingly happy," she said, watching Maverick wrap his arms around me from behind. "Jealous?" I asked. "Nauseous? There's a difference." But she was smiling. Really smiling. For the first time in 18 months, my sister looked like herself again. "Therapy session today?" Maverick asked her. "Yeah. Dr. Chen thinks I'm making progress. Says I might be ready to start college classes next semester." Pride swelled in my chest. "That's amazing, Will. It's terrifying. But I think I'm ready." She looked at me seriously. "Thanks to you, both of you, for not giving up, for finding me, for giving me a reason to fight my way back." "You did the fighting," I said. "We just lit the way home." After she left, Maverick turned me to face him. "I have something for you," he said. "Hun, it's not even my birthday." "I know, but this couldn't wait." He handed me a small box. Inside was a key. "It's to a house," he said before I could ask. "In the suburbs. Normal. Safe. The kind of place where you can have a regular life if you want it, where Willow can heal without looking over her shoulder, where you don't have to be an agent or a warrior or anything except yourself." My throat tightened. "You bought me a house. I bought us a future. If you want it, if you're ready to stop running and start building something permanent. What about your work? The task force? I'm done. 2 years undercover was enough. I've paid my debt to justice. Now I want to pay attention to living. His hands framed my face. With you, if you'll have me. I should have hesitated, should have thought it through. And you should have been practical and cautious and all the things a good agent was supposed to be, but I'd spent 8 months learning that sometimes the right thing looked like the wrong thing, that rules were made for people who didn't have the courage to break them when it mattered. And this mattered. Yes, I said, yes to the house and the future and building something permanent, yes to all of it. He kissed me then, deep and slow and full of promise, and as I melted into him, I realized something profound. I'd followed him that night thinking he was a monster. I'd discovered he was a man, and in the process of hunting him, I'd found myself, found my sister, found a love I never knew I was searching for. Sometimes the best things in life come from the most dangerous journeys. And sometimes the person following you isn't your enemy. Sometimes they're your salvation. But our story didn't end with happily ever after. Because there were still shadows in Maverick's past. Still enemies who wanted revenge. Still battles to fight and demons to face. But we'd face them together. The federal agent who broke every rule. And the undercover operative who'd spent years pretending to be a monster. 2 broken people who'd found each other in the darkness and decided to build something beautiful in the ruins. It wouldn't be easy, wouldn't be simple, wouldn't be anything like the safe, normal life most people dreamed of. But it would be ours. And that was enough.